Miss Sote. So to review domain and range a little bit more, I'm going to be doing a series of 3 examples with you all, and this is video 1. So we are going to graph a function, or not even a function, we're going to graph something that has a domain of -3/4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 6, and a range of y is less than or equal to 4 or y is greater than 10.5. A lot of you on your quiz just kind of chose one of these options for your range, but we had a few examples in our notes where we had that or situation because we had a gap in our graph. So before we even start graphing, let's kind of break this information up and just take note of what we need to have. So let's look at this domain. So our domain is -3/4 is the lowest it can possibly be. And we've got a less than or equal sign. So -3/4 is in our domain. So the way I'm going to deal with that, if you notice I am scaling it by 2 here. So halfway is 1. So let's go like right here for 3/4. So 3/4 is right here. And if you notice I put a bracket. And the bracket is because in interval notation, we can use this bracket to signify less than or equal to, and drawing a less than or equal to on a graph looks a little messy. So we have this bracket where that's the lowest we can go. Let's figure out where the highest we can go is. So the highest we can go is 6. But if you notice that less than symbol, 6 is not in our domain. We can get really close to 6, but we can't hit 6. So I'm actually just going to put a little parentheses right there at that 6. And so now I know that I need to have a domain that hits all of these in between values. So it needs to hit -3/4 and it needs to get close to 6. So that is what I'm going to do for my domain. Let's do the same thing for range. So let's color range in blue. So for my range, let's do this first part. Y has to be less than or equal to 4. So again, I'm going to draw a little bracket just to visualize this. And I know my domain for this part needs to keep going on forever and ever and ever. So I could even draw the blue like all the way down. So it's going on forever and ever. So that's this little chunk. But we also have that y has to be greater than 10.5. So if I do greater than 10.5, 10.5 isn't in my domain, so I'm going to put that parentheses, but I got to go everywhere higher. So now at least we have a little visualization of where our graph should be hitting and where it shouldn't. So I need a graph that hits all of these red spots and all of these blue spots. And so let's think of a graph that can do that. So the first thing I'm going to think of is, okay, this 4 and this -3/4 have to be hit. So why not make a point that includes both of those values? So I'm going to put a point right here. Remember, you always have to label your important points. So I'm going to label it -3/4, 4. So this point I have graphed with a closed dot, so it is on my graph. And so I've reached the left side of my domain, and I've reached this top part of this part of my range. And I'm just going to have a little fun. So I'm going to just get a little squiggly. Cool, cool, cool. And at like y equals, I don't know, let's do like 4. I'm going to go straight down. So as you can see, this graph is going, and then it's pretty clear this graph is going pretty much straight down, so it's not going to eventually get past this 6 marker. You could have gone all the way to the 6 marker and gotten close to it, but I kind of want to leave some stuff for this top part. If you don't want to, totally fine. So I'm just going to make a note right here. Here's another important point we've hit at 4, 0. Cool. So now I've covered this entire part of the range, and I've covered most of my domain. So now I'm going to go up here, and if you notice, 10.5 can't be included in our range. So I can't draw a point starting at 10.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an open dot at 4, 10.5. And that's totally fine because 4 is in our domain, but we've already covered 4 down here. 4 is already covered. Every thing from -3/4 to 4 is covered. So it's totally fine that that's an open dot. And now I got to figure out, okay, well, this part of the range I got to go on forever and ever and ever. And I also got to finish this last little chunk of my domain. So what I'm going to do is I'm again going to get a little squiggly. And I'm going to draw a line that gets really close to 6, but clearly never hits it. So as you can see, it's really, really close to 6. As I keep going up and up and up forever, it's not going to hit 6, but it's going to keep getting closer. And now let's just do a double check. So my domain is in this red part. I've hit all parts of my domain. If you go across, anytime I look up, I'm going to hit some part of my domain. So domain covered. This part of my range, I started at the bottom, put an open dot because we can't include 10.5, and I drew something that goes up and up and up forever and ever with that arrow. Perfect. Now let's talk about this part of the range. We've started at 4 because 4 is included in our range. We went down and down and down forever and ever, which is what this part of the range asked for. So that is an example of a question like that. I know it feels a little complicated, but I promise as we go through this 3-video series, it will make more sense. And before I move on, let's remember all the key aspects that need to be included in a graph. So I need to label my X and Y axis. I need to scale my axes, which I already did. So this is 2, 4, 6. This is going by 2s as well. And then I also labeled my important points. So you don't have to label all of them, but if something feels important, like you're like, oh, Miss Sote should probably know what that point is, probably important. The end points are always important. So wherever a graph starts is important. And if it did have an endpoint, if we didn't have these arrows going on and on forever, I would also label your endpoints. And then I'm just going to give this one a title that's pretty simple. I'm just going to call it graph 1. Because I don't know the equations for these graphs, so I can't really label them the equations of those graphs. So I'm just going to get a little basic and label it that. So that is example 1, video 1. What I'm going to have you do now is you're going to do your own example. So on your homework, please create a graph with a domain of x is less than 3 or x is greater than or equal to 9. And don't forget all the key parts of our graph. You don't have to worry about range, just really focus on domain for this one. I hope this video helped. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.